Every parent faces the same dilemma. Should you give your kids more autonomy, or do they need firmer boundaries to thrive? We value our kids' freedom, but we also worry that too much of it leads to bad habits. Junk food, late nights, endless screen time, and a disregard for responsibility. Parenting wisdom, meanwhile, insists that without rules, children will struggle later on. Setting limits, even if unpopular, is seen as a necessary duty. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if children, when treated as capable individuals, naturally develop the skills and discipline they need, without coercion? What if rules don't actually teach responsibility, but instead create power struggles, deception, and resentment? That's where taking children seriously comes in, a radical, and some say deeply logical approach to raising kids. It starts with a simple idea. Children are people whose reasoning, emotions, and creativity functions just like adults. And if that's true, it follows that traditional parenting methods, where parents impose limits and demand obedience, might not be helping children at all. Instead of rules and discipline, there's another way, one that fosters understanding, cooperation, and true independence. We'll explore what happens when parents abandon control and focus on guiding their children as autonomous individuals. How do kids respond to total freedom? Can they really be trusted to make their own choices? And what does it take to raise a child without forcing them to obey? Let's find out. Children thrive through freedom and respect, not rigid rules. No bedtime, no meal schedules, unlimited screen time, and no mandatory schoolwork. Chores, sharing, and even saying thank you are left up to the child. Conflicts between siblings aren't mediated, and there are no punishments, no timeouts, no enforced family gatherings. Even sitting at the dinner table is optional. Sounds like a recipe for chaos, or even neglect, right? Well, maybe not. As the advocates of taking children seriously see it, their approach isn't about abandoning responsibility. It's about rethinking what it means to raise a child. Instead of seeing kids as unruly minors requiring strict discipline and control, this philosophy treats them as individuals capable of making their own choices. The idea is simple. Children are people, and people learn best when they're free to explore the world in their own way. Most parenting styles, by contrast, focus on setting boundaries, what's allowed, what's not, and how to enforce the rules. Should parents use rewards, punishments, or something in between? Should they discipline with timeouts or gentle encouragement? Instead of answering these questions, the taking children seriously approach steps away from rules entirely. It doesn't even ask how to enforce limits because it doesn't believe in limits in the first place. The key idea is that rules don't lead to true understanding. Real learning happens through freedom, creativity, and experience. Just like adults, children develop best when they have control over their own lives. By removing rules, parents create an environment where children can fully engage with the world and discover how it works. So how does this play out in daily life? Imagine a child who doesn't have a bedtime. Instead of being forced to sleep at a certain hour, they go to bed when they feel tired. Over time, they learn to listen to their bodies and regulate their own sleep. The same applies to food. With no restrictions, they might binge on sweets at first, but eventually, they figure out how different foods make them feel and adjust their eating habits accordingly. Conflict resolution also follows this principle. Instead of parents stepping in to break up a fight, children are encouraged to work things out on their own. Without an authority figure imposing solutions, they develop negotiation skills and learn to navigate relationships in a way that makes sense to them. The taking children seriously approach challenges nearly every conventional parenting belief. It also requires lots of trust. Trust in children's ability to learn, adapt, and take responsibility for their own lives. It's a radical shift, one that prioritizes autonomy and mutual respect over control. And for those who embrace it, the results can be both surprising and transformative. Strict rules backfire and undermine healthy emotional development. Imposing rules on children may seem like common sense. After all, kids are born without the knowledge of what's best for them. Parents set rules to prevent bad habits and ensure safety, but there's a problem. Rule enforcement often creates more issues than it solves. It damages trust, it fuels resentment, and teaches children to be deceptive rather than responsible. Think about how kids react when something they want, food, screens, or staying up late, is controlled by a parent. The parent becomes a gatekeeper, a roadblock to be outwitted. This leads to sneaking, lying, guilt-tripping, or relentless pleading. Whatever it takes to get past the barrier. Even well-meaning rules can push children into manipulative behaviors, not because they're bad kids, but because problem-solving is human nature. Adults do the same thing when faced with rules that seem unfair or unnecessary. The traditional way to handle this is simple: intimidation. Don't even ask, parents say, making it clear that questioning authority isn't allowed. But shutting down curiosity and treating questioning as defiance only suppresses open communication. When children aren't allowed to ask why, they stop looking to their parents for guidance. Instead of seeing a parent as a source of wisdom, they view them as an obstacle to be navigated. Even when parents take the time to explain a rule, children often struggle to understand it. Concepts like, "too much sugar is unhealthy," or "you'll be tired tomorrow," are abstract ideas that young minds can't always grasp. Without true understanding, rules feel arbitrary, especially when they interfere with what a child wants to do. Over time, frustration builds, turning into resentment, and resentment doesn't just disappear, it simmers beneath the surface, shaping how kids see authority and the world around them. The deeper danger is that a resentful child who constantly feels blocked by rules learns to blame others for their problems. Instead of feeling responsible for their own choices, they see life as something that happens to them. This mindset can follow them into adulthood, leaving them passive, frustrated, and dependent on others to remove obstacles for them. But rejecting strict rules doesn't mean embracing neglect. Parenting doesn't have to be about enforcing boundaries. It can be about shaping an environment where kids naturally make good choices. The goal isn't control, it's guidance. Rules cause conflict, while creative solutions build cooperation. Most parents aim for a balance between structure and flexibility. They want to encourage independence while maintaining necessary boundaries. The challenge is deciding where to draw the line. Too many rules can create power struggles and resentment, while too much freedom can lead to chaos. This raises the important question: is there a better way? The alternative isn't a mix of strict limits and occasional leniency. Instead, parenting can focus on finding creative solutions that meet both the child's needs and the parent's concerns. Rather than enforcing rules or giving in, the goal is to discover win-win outcomes. Take a common issue: kids drawing on the walls. A strict rule might be, no drawing on the walls ever. But to a child, that rule seems arbitrary. Walls are big, stable, and always available. They are, in short, great for drawing on. So, instead of simply forbidding it, The question becomes, how can that creative urge be channeled in a way that works for both the child and the parent? A win-win solution might involve taping large sheets of paper to the table, giving the child a surface that doesn't move under their marker. If they still prefer the wall, washable markers and extra paint could always allow for easy cleanup. Instead of controlling behavior through rigid restrictions, this approach makes compliance easy and appealing. The child gets what they love about drawing on walls, and the parent maintains a clean home. You might be wondering, what happens if the child refuses and keeps drawing on the wall? Or what if they move on to the couch? Well, the key is to keep adjusting. If the child resists the alternative, it's because it doesn't yet match the appeal of the original activity. The goal isn't to impose control, but to create an option that's more attractive than the rule-breaking behavior. The overall idea isn't to find a halfway point between strictness and permissiveness. Instead, it's about a shift in perspective, from policing behavior to understanding motivation. Why does your child want to do something? What makes the experience enjoyable? Once those elements are identified, they can be recreated in a way that suits both parent and child. Now, this approach takes effort, especially at first. It requires patience, observation, and creativity. But over time, it fosters cooperation instead of conflict. Children learn that their desires are understood, and parents no longer feel like enforcers. The end result: a home where both children and parents work together, not in opposition. Parenting is more fulfilling when you problem solve. Parenting becomes far more rewarding when the focus shifts from enforcing rules to understanding what truly drives a child's behavior. As we've seen, finding win-win solutions isn't just about managing isolated conflicts. It's about seeing each challenge as an opportunity to build connection, trust, and a deeper understanding of how children engage with the world. Instead of reacting with frustration or authority, you approach everyday struggles with curiosity and flexibility. Let's take a closer look at how that works in practice. Sometimes the first step is realizing that a perceived problem may not be a problem at all. A child spilling something on the floor might seem like an inconvenience, but if the floor already needs cleaning, does stopping them really serve a purpose? A child who is playing with shampoo in the bath isn't trying to waste soap. They're exploring texture, movement, and cause and effect. Rather than shutting it down, a simple shift like providing extra bottles or buying shampoo in smaller containers can preserve the fun without causing frustration. These minor adjustments remove unnecessary tension and keep both parent and child engaged in a positive way. Not every challenge has an instant fix, and patience is key. Sometimes the best solutions emerge only after multiple failed attempts. A child refusing to put on their shoes before leaving the house might resist every explanation or demand. Instead of forcing the issue, parents can experiment with different approaches. They might propose a playful race to the door, turning shoe tying into a game, or offer a choice between two pairs of shoes to shift a child's mindset. When the process feels engaging rather than imposed, resistance fades and cooperation becomes natural. The real beauty of this approach is its long-term effect. It teaches children that solutions are not about control, but about creativity. It shows them that problems can be worked through rather than fought against. Over time, this builds a home where cooperation replaces conflict, where both parents and children feel respected, and where challenges become opportunities to learn and grow together. Shifting away from rules and toward understanding doesn't just make parenting easier, it makes it more meaningful. If you want to find real solutions, learn to embrace failure. Unlike rules, which are easy to implement but often create resistance, Win-win solutions require creative discovery. See, the key is to give the mind time and space to explore your child's perspective. The more time spent observing the situation and identifying what makes an activity appealing, the easier it becomes to find alternatives that meet both the child's needs and your concerns as a parent. This is why rushing to a solution rarely works. The best ideas often arise when the mind is allowed to process the situation in the background. Of course, most ideas don't work on the first try. That's expected. A crucial part of this approach is accepting failure as a part of the process. A bad solution shouldn't be forced. This is what makes win-win solutions fundamentally different from rules. Rules attempt to impose a single answer while ignoring the unintended consequences. Win-win solutions continuously evolve, refining ideas until resistance disappears and cooperation naturally takes hold. Take the common challenge of giving medicine to a reluctant toddler. The instinct might be to explain why it's necessary or to insist. But what happens if that approach is abandoned in favor of creative exploration? You could try mixing it in food. If that doesn't work, another idea might present itself, like role-playing with a toy doctor set, or letting the child watch a sibling take the medicine first. In one case, a toddler who refused medicine suddenly took it happily after being allowed to minister a dose to her baby brother. Having processed the situation, she happily drank the medicine on her own. Now you might ask, what if this trick doesn't work next time? What if there's no baby around? The answer is simple. Another solution will be needed. But each success provides stepping stones for the future. Maybe next time a doll will take the medicine first, or your child will become a doctor and give a pretend dose to you. The number of possible solutions is endless. Games, imagination, and playful problem solving can be modified infinitely, ensuring that there's always another way forward. This abundance of possibilities is what makes the taking children seriously approach so powerful. There's no need for frustration or coercion when there's always another solution waiting to be discovered. And the best ideas emerge when parents step back, observe, and let their creativity take the lead. The more they do this, the more they understand their child's world, and the more their child learns to trust, cooperate, and engage with joy rather than resistance.